my name's not important. What matters is that what you're about to hear actually happened, at least as much of it as I can remember. I don't expect you to believe me. Hell, I wish I didn't believe it myself. But the next time you walk along the shore and see something glinting in the sand, you'll think about this story. You'll think about what might be calling you closer. This is the gold coin. And if you have any sense of self-preservation, you'll never pick up anything the ocean offers you. I don't even think I believed in luck. But the beach changed that. It's a forgotten place along the English coast, fenced off by cliffs that crumble a little more every year. Nobody goes there unless they know the path down. And I only found it because of my obsession metal detecting. For years, I came here chasing the thrill of finding something buried, something older than me. Mostly, it was junk bottle caps, scrap metal, a few old pennies eaten by rust. But it was quiet here. The air smelled of salt and rot, and when the wind came through, it howled like an empty lung. I liked that. It drowned out everything else. That day, the sky was the color of pewter, and the waves slammed against the rocks like they wanted in. The tide was low, the beach wide, perfect for searching. I'd been out there for hours when I found it something small and gleaming, half buried in wet sand. I thought it was just a bit of foil at first, some litter tossed ashore. But when I brushed it clean, my breath caught. A coin, not silver gold, heavy, warm, and impossibly smooth. The markings were strange. On one side, a warped face, not quite human, the mouth stretched too wide like the jaw of an anglerfish. The other side was worn smooth by time. It shouldn't have been there. Not in this place, not like that. For a moment, I thought I heard something under the surf. A low hum, steady and deep, like something vast was breathing beneath the waves. I looked out at the water. It seemed to pulse. That should have been my cue to leave. But greed or curiosity, maybe both, made me stay. The more I stared at the coin, the more wrong it looked. It wasn't minted, it was hammered, handmade, older than any civilization that should have existed here. I turned it over again and again, and I swear I felt it move. Just a tiny vibration, like the faint shudder of a trapped insect. The rational part of me tried to laugh it off. But there was another glint farther up the beach, wedged between rocks, where the tide was starting to crawl back in. Another coin. I told myself I'd just grab it and go. That was the mistake. Always one more, always one step closer. The sand sucked at my boots as I climbed over the jagged stones. The sea growled behind me, the tide coming in faster than I remembered it ever had. And then I slipped. One wrong step, one wet stone, and I was falling. The cold hit like concrete. Salt water punched the air from my lungs. I remember the scream torn from my throat and lost to the roar of the surf. Something pulled at me. Not the current. Something with intention. I felt fingers, or maybe ropes, around my ankle. And before I could even fight, I was under. I don't know how long I was under. It felt like hours. The world was nothing but noise, pressure, movement, pain. Every time I tried to reach the surface, something dragged me deeper. And through the blur of foam and blood, I saw light. It wasn't sunlight. It was golden. Dozens, maybe hundreds of those coins, tumbling and spinning through the dark water, as if someone had just emptied a chest of treasure right in front of me. They didn't fall. They hovered. And behind them, a shape, a vast outline impossible to focus on. It moved with the tide, but wasn't part of it. Then something hit my ribs, and I blacked out. When I came to, I was coughing brine onto cold stone. The tide had thrown me into a shallow cave at the base of the cliff. The sky outside was fading to grey. I lay there, shaking broken ribs, grinding against each breath, my leg twisted at an angle that made me want to vomit. But when I unclenched my fist, both coins were still there. Even then, even with pain and blood filling my mouth, my first thought was I didn't lose them. That's when I realized how deep the hook was already set. The tide was still rising. Water lapped against my hips as I dragged myself deeper into the cave. Every inch forward scraped my palms raw against the rock. The cave narrowed quickly, forcing me to crawl. The air grew colder, sharper. There was a smell of wet stone decay, something metallic underneath. At one point, I passed a cat's skull lodged in the sand. Its hollow eyes seemed to follow me as the light dimmed. When the water reached my chest, panic kicked in. I dragged myself up a slope of rock and gravel until the tunnel rose above the tide. The floor was slick with algae, the walls glistening like the inside of a throat. I stopped to breathe, to think, but my torch only threw weak light into the dark. And then I saw something that froze me. A pile of clothes. 6 coats, torn and rotting. Shoes, gloves, a child's backpack. All scattered, waterlogged, stacked like offerings. And next to them, a man. At first, I thought he was sleeping. He was slumped against the wall, smiling faintly, like someone lost in a pleasant dream. Then, I saw the hole where his eyes should have been. His teeth were gone too. The lips stretched back just enough to look like a grin. I don't know how I didn't scream. But I turned the torch away and started crawling again. That's when I heard the first sound. A breath. Not mine. I killed the light and listened. For a while there was nothing but dripping water. Then a shift, soft and deliberate, somewhere behind me. My heart felt like it was trying to crawl out of my chest. I didn't move. Something brushed against the stone. Slow like fingertips, dragging along the wall. When I finally turned the light back on, the body was gone. Just gone. Only the wet drag marks remained leading deeper into the dark. That's when I noticed the carvings. They ran along the cave walls in neat lines, ancient symbols, pictographs of ships and men, and things. A creature with a bulbous head and a mouth full of light, standing above tiny humans, kneeling in rows. It looked like worship. And then I saw the gold. Coins embedded in the rock. Hundreds of them glimmering faintly, forming the shape of an open mouth. Every instinct I had screamed to leave. But behind me, the water was still rising. So I crawled forward, right into that mouth. The tunnel split in two. At the fork, someone or something had placed another coin, perfectly centered. It caught my light and shimmered. A trap, I thought immediately. Something waiting to see if I'd take it. I wanted to throw it away to prove I wasn't that stupid. But my hand wouldn't listen. I picked up a rock instead, threw it down the other tunnel, and held my breath. For a few seconds, nothing. Then a sound. A low scrape, soft and fleshy, like wet hands, dragging across stone. It moved toward the noise I'd made. It was there. Something alive in the dark. When I dared to look again, the coin was gone. That's when the realization hit me. It wasn't waiting for me to pick it up. It was waiting for me to notice. I crawled until I reached a vast chamber where faint daylight filtered down through a hole above. A rusted ladder clung to the wall, slick with age and seaweed. The sky freedom was just out of reach. I tried to climb. My ribs screamed. My ankle burned. But I got one rung higher, then another. That's when I heard it. A noise like breath caught in a throat, wet, eager close. I looked down. It was climbing after me. I only saw flashes in the light, pale skin stretched too tight, eyes black as tar, a mouth smiling too wide full of teeth like broken glass. It didn't make a sound as it climbed, but every rung it touched began to groan. I climbed faster. My muscles tore, my arms numb. The ladder shook as something heavy grabbed my leg. Its fingers were wrong, too long, too many joints. They sank into my calf like knives. I screamed and kicked. I don't know how, but I broke free. The last thing I saw before I fell was its face, not angry, not wild, just hungry. And then the world turned black. When I woke, everything smelled of antiseptic. A nurse was standing over me, pale and startled. I tried to speak, but my throat burned like I'd swallowed salt. They told me I'd been missing for a day and a half. Hikers had found me collapsed near the old storm drain, farther down the cliffs. They said I was lucky. Lucky. My mother came. So did the police. They asked questions I couldn't answer. Why I'd been in the cave. Why I'd lost so much blood. Then I saw the bandages. My leg was gone. The stump was neat, surgical almost. But they said the edges of the wound didn't look like an injury. They looked like digestion. I didn't tell them about the coins. I didn't tell them about the face. I just nodded when they said I'd fallen. But at night, I could hear it, the same soft scrape of something moving in water. And sometimes, if the room was quiet enough, I could swear I heard it whisper, "Mine." Months passed. I moved into a caravan near the edge of town, far from the sea. I told myself I was done with treasure, done with the beach. But the nightmares kept coming. Salt on my tongue, pressure on my chest, and that same whisper just beneath hearing. One morning there was a knock at the door. I limped over, half expecting it to be the police again. No one there, just the wind, and something lying on the step. A gold coin, still wet, still warm. When I picked it up, I thought I heard waves crashing far too close for where I lived. And beneath that faint and familiar, the sound of breathing. They say the sea gives and the sea takes. That's a lie. It doesn't give, it trades. One coin, one life, one glimpse beneath the waves, and it owns you. Sometimes when it rains, I swear I can still hear it. Not the water, the breathing underneath it, waiting for me to come back. Maybe one day I will. Maybe that's what it's waiting for. Until then, if you ever find a gold coin lying in the sand, leave it there. Because it's not treasure. It's bait.